All right, welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Conversations. We have our special guests for our conversation starters episodes where we just come in and we talk about what's going on in sports from the business side. We talk about current topics, and we have Darren Kelly with us today. Darren, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good, man. We had a time right now, holiday season, a lot of football being played. We're gonna get into a lot of that today, but a lot going on in the sports world. I'm doing amazing, man. Just trying to stay warm. That's the
Yeah,
biggest
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Yeah. The weather keeps changing. We get rain one day, we get a little warm, and then we it gets cold. So yeah, you know how that is. You know how
Yeah,
that is.
but I'm
That's
hanging in
that
there.
that gets 6 season.
Man, I was man. A couple of days ago, I felt like Spider-Man on Endgame. Felt like I was fading away. I ain't feel too good, so I'm
Oh
bouncing back
man, nah, yeah, you gotta bounce back, stay hydrated. You know what I'm saying?
for sure.
During this time, stay hydrated for sure. But I'm good, man. Just
Yeah,
a lot of traveling.
yeah,
I'm in a hotel right now, so that you know how that is. But yeah, man, I'm just on the road, in and out of hotels. Hopefully, I be able to sit down coming up these holiday season. So
for sure, for
good.
sure. The road. You seem like you let away games. Always let away games.
Yeah,
They bring
man.
out the
Yeah,
best
man.
of you.
I bring out the best. Bring out the best. You talk about the flu game. What Dickie V used to say, prime time player, man. Prime time player.
Gotta still
I love
produce.
yeah, I love that growing up where when Dickie V used to talk about the PT peers, and it was
For sure.
always like a big road game. You going into Cameron Indoor, you going into what was Syracuse, the Carrier
Carry
Dome.
it down. Yep.
Yeah, like that's when college basketball was really rocking, really on point.
Come on. So
Yeah. But now let's dive into it, man. Let's open up with college football playoffs and what it means. I know everybody always wants to analyze the on the field, but over here, we love to talk about the off the field stuff and understand how that's going. But the college football playoff era, and then the biggest things that we've been seeing is the financial and competitive shifts that's been making. The different conferences that have been going away in what that means to what the future looks like. And then also, the college football playoff, they they collectively spent 27 million on non-conference schedules. So it's like a big spending disparity, right? So Texas led the way with millions spent, but Arizona State didn't spend anything. Like it's like you spend your money for the big schedules, but then it pays off or it doesn't. But like it's a lot of strategy that goes behind scheduling weaker opponents, or if you're going to schedule big opponents, or like probably like where you stand on that?
yeah, I think that across sports right now, everybody, no one doesn't want to watch any boring games, right? It's just like we want to watch something that's exciting. It's like we're so invested into the sports and college football right now. You think about from the release of the NCAA video game, right? This is the most anticipated season of college football, and so I think that in the spirit of competition, you're gonna have larger schools trying to manipulate the system and do those certain things. But I think at the same time, I don't want the spirit of competition to be lost at the end of the day. I still think that everybody should have a fair chance, but you have to find that balance between like, okay, we want to, we want, smaller schools to have a chance. We also want to see really good competitive games at the same time. So I think it's
Right,
more or less
right.
striking that balance between those two things.
Yeah, and so the question is like, do you think they should introduce rules that cap the spending that you can have, or like incentivize tougher schedules? Like, where do we go?
I think as far as incentivizing tougher schedules, I think that's one route, but I don't think that it's fair to. I mean, it's tough because it's like I don't know. I don't think that there shouldn't be a cap on how much a team should spend because then if you do put a cap, then you're capping pretty all of the financial aspects. Not even just with how they spend schedules, but you think about revenue
Uh,
sharing that's coming up.
Yeah,
So now you're going to be setting a precedent that now and it's like now I understand there has to be a balance, but I don't think that there should be a cap. I think that, the way that people are creatively pulling funds together and finding different ways to be competitive, I think that's a good thing. And trying to regulate that to an extreme, I don't think that's good for the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a fine line, right? I know there's a strategy that, they have to go into scheduling their opponents, but there's also like, okay, do you do what's best for the overall college football landscape? Like the viewers want to see great games. They want to see the big matchup. And so we start not scheduling these big games just so you can win out and be in the college football playoff. Like you said, it just takes away from the spirit of the competition. And one of the things that I think I'm gonna get my boy Slim on to kind of talk about this. He, there is a big thing behind, like, if you are taking some of the regular season games away and you're either extending the playoffs and having that opportunity to have more big games, because now you're playing more ranked teams, you're playing higher ranked teams, because who really cares about this? Like when you're playing these smaller teams, it's almost like a bye week. People aren't paying attention to it. So it's just you just getting another W and then you're going on to play. But if you cut out some of those regular season games and you extend the playoffs, and that means you're playing more higher ranked, more tougher opponents, then I think that is something that everybody wants to see, right? I think everybody wants to see better games, and everybody wants to see better competition and playing each other and settling it on the field.
Yeah, because I think that's where, there's a lot of, I think I think it was Gary Danielson who said that, the media companies pushed the 12-team play, or not the media companies, but the media networks, right? They wanted the 12-team playoff. They wanted that because it's more coverage. Everybody eats when you're playing college football well into January, but at the same time, we got to think about, the competition and, the types of games that we want to see. I mean, I know we're going to talk about it later, but just even the NFL in these, specific games that we're getting on streaming platforms, so like the Netflixes of the world. So it matters that the types of games you're getting matters because you want as many eyeballs on product as possible.
Yep. And think about it from the perspective of, if I'm the media, if I'm the streaming platforms, then which would I rather have? Would I rather have the conference? Like, would I rather own? Because I think it's like, with Fox, okay, they own whatever conference, or, CBS, they own the SEC. Like, would I
Mm-hmm.
rather own the conference, or would I rather have the college football playoffs where I can actually know that I'm getting big eyeballs on these games, where I know that these big alumni are going to be watching, like, regardless of whether you are, you're the number one team and they actually feel like you actually have a chance to win. We know Notre Dame fan base is tuning in to watch them play. We know that, when you get the Penn States of the world, we know that they're tuning in to watch them play. You want that. You would rather have that than Alabama Vanderbilt, even if Vanderbilt is good. Like, you would rather have Alabama Penn State. You got people that are like a big fan base that's tuning in to watch them play. You want those big historical, prestigious matchups that you want to see. And I think the streaming platforms are going to look to extend. Like, I think it just came out earlier today about them extending it from 12 to 14, in I think 2 years or something like that. But yeah, what's your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think everybody was. I think that, if you go back to the teams that you mentioned, one of them is very interesting in Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame and Indiana are going to be playing on December 20th. And we had on a Gojo and Golick show, we had Riley Leonard on, the starting quarterback from Notre Dame. And he was saying how, man, they're Notre Dame fans, not just in South Bend, not just in Indiana, but they're in Chicago, they're in New York. Like, I forgot who said it, or I think it was Ryan Clark who said that, Notre Dame is like America's, team when it comes to college football. They're always on TV. I mean, they're an independent. They have they have a long time relationship with NBC. So their games are always on prime. More likely than not prime time. You're going to see a Notre Dame USC game. So I think that, when we take it up a notch with streaming, I think that these streaming platforms are going to want those games, and you automatically win. But again, it's about striking a balance. And, I think a lot of people, the biggest gripe that they had was just about like the seeding of certain teams, and, certain teams getting a bye, and it not being like like in the NFL where there's a reseeding. Even if you win your division, you still are seeded differently. Like you don't just shoot the
Yeah.
number one. So I think that you're going to see those nuances come into play. Then the streaming platforms are going to want a piece of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's big. And I think what leads to this is our next topic, which is the transfer portal, right? I think that the more and more we see that the college football playoffs is going to be, uh, you know, deciding everything, everybody's decision making. And what I saw was record breaking numbers of athletes entering the transfer portal, particularly quarterbacks. And I think that's huge because quarterbacks have the most opportunity to change the dynamic of teams. And the NIL deals are what are literally going to determine where these players are going to go. You know, some of the notable transfers they're going to be impact players, but then if you swing and miss, it can change your trajectory. What's your thoughts? What do you think of the pros and cons of like, this player move?
I mean, I think that we're gonna get closer and closer towards. I mean, more so colleges now operating like professional franchises, like an NFL, where you have a specific amount of money set aside for a cap and what you're gonna be spending on certain positions. And I think it was even not even just in football though, right? This is bigger than just this one particular sport of football. You got to think basketball. I believe on Penny Hardaway's podcast, he talks about like, man, I got to recruit. You got to re-recruit your own players. He's like, at the end of the season, man, let's talk, because you got to re-recruit your own players. That's what I think is unique, is that the transfer portal is like, if you have a person that, a guy that comes in as a freshman that's not getting no playing time, they can be out of there, because you can go and get someone who is more experienced, who started. I mean, look at what Coach Prime is doing in Colorado. Like, getting people who have experience, it's like finding that balance between, new talent that's going to play right away, and then also getting experienced talent and trying to find that synergy between the two. But I mean, it's going to put a lot of stress on teams, because even though you have access to so much money, as I said here before, it's all about how you spend it. I mean, look at the Ohio States of the world. Like people, the biggest gripe wasn't that they got that Michigan beat them. I mean, yeah, that was embarrassing, but it's the fact that you've gathered a lot of funds to get a lot of talent. You're getting a running back who led Quinshon Junkins, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. You have a lot of you got Jeremiah Smith, a lot of attention, and then you go and get a quarterback that doesn't really help you get over the hump, and you spit reportedly or allegedly $20 million on that roster. And it's like, if that's what a $20 million roster get you, then what is a 40 or a 60? It's just going to go, that's not even, I mean, that barely even scratches the surface with some of these schools and how much money they're raising in NIL. And, but I think the ones that are going to really break away are the ones that really, really apply that structure to a cap, and then maximize the amount of funds on the right players to really take, the teams to the next level.
Yeah, and we're gonna see like positions they've already started opening, but we're gonna see positions that are gonna be opening that are literally about finalizing finalizing the cap and allocation of money. That's gonna be the biggest thing that's gonna be talked about, that's going to be put out there, is how you, like you said, $20 million. Like, what are you doing with that $20 million? And if you miss with that $20 million, somebody has to get out of here. Whether it's the coach, whether it's the who's responsible for recruiting. There's a lot of big things that goes along with that. And I think you touched on a lot of different topics that I wanted to talk about. Like literally, my last podcast was with a coach from Georgia Southern. His name is Ulysses Hall. And his job is he's not a coach on the field. He's a coach off the field, and his job is to make sure that he's recruiting and retention. And and his job is to make, he's supposed to catch those ones that could potentially be on their way out. He's supposed to catch them before they're on their way out. Or if he's recruiting, he's supposed to be able to see and understand the character, and because we're spending money on these players now. We're utilizing part of our funds to recruit. And I think that's a very important it's an important thing that has to be done and has to be addressed on these football teams. And it's something that's definitely going to be eye opening, and it is something that definitely has to be addressed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of that is not only just the transfer portal, but just what the college football playoffs is going to mean to just the regular traditional bowl games, right? Like, does anybody care about the regular bowl games anymore? Like who's watching? Like, is that going to be still a thing? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, you know, with the bowls that are not necessarily the ones that are going to get a lot of viewership, what you're going to see is that they kind of take on the identity of being kind of a novelty, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
like the Pop Tart Bowl, for example, right?
Yeah.
With the giant Pop Tart, that's one example. I think that what we're seeing now with NIL is that college football storylines now, everything is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's becoming like you have Dr. Pepper Fansville, that could be a whole. You could do like a whole TV show just spin off of that, or the
Good point.
Heisman House, for example. So I think that those non-traditional bowls are gonna go in a direction of like, it's more like, oh, okay, if it's on, well, why it'll be just something on in the
Yeah.
background. It's just like if you doing something, it'll pique your attention, or if the mascot is going crazy or something, like it'll appeal to that
You
aspect.
know what? That is a great point. And if I'm a brand, those big brands, and I have money to spend, it is definitely a great way to do some storytelling, to do marketing, to partner like it goes back to the streaming platforms. If I'm Pop Tart, let's keep with Pop Tart. If I'm Pop Tart and I can partner with Netflix and I can do some storytelling and I can throw some NIL money out to the players to make sure that, like I said, like in these players in the past have started opting out. But if I can throw some NIL money at them, hey, you're an NIL, I mean, you're a Pop Tart athlete. I need you to play in this game. I need you to participate. I need you to play in this game that's gonna a lot of people gonna be watching, and I can do a lot of things, as we lead up to this game, even from, like you just said, like think about Casanat and how he does his streaming. Like, think about some of the things that you can do leading up to these bowl games, and getting these young kids involved. And I think it's going to be genius.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a lot of key points as far as like two in particular. One is that I think that from predict at some point now I don't I don't know if it'll actually get there, but I think we'll probably get to a day where like the bowl season will probably be scratching and clawing on like the level of like a Super Bowl, where you're gonna be something, not saying on the same level, argue because you can't
Right, right,
compete with
right,
the Super Bowl, but you're
right.
gonna see so much ad money being spent during college bowl season
Yeah,
by brands, to appeal to the storytelling, to appeal to the marketability. But then to take it even a step further, you bring up Casanet. Like, imagine a brand who has ownership of a bowl, or is in charge of a bowl, reaching out to a Casanet and being like, hey, like, do some marketing promotion behind this bowl. I mean,
yep,
people are gonna watch. People are gonna
yep,
watch that.
yep.
And you're merging, people, generations. You got Gen Z and all younger generations who are into streaming. Now they're in the college football ecosystem. Now they're interested in a bowl game because Casanet's like, hey, watch this bowl, or is working closely with a brand because they're already working with major brands now. Like, merge that with football, with college football playoff bowl season. I mean, that
hmm
we're talking about a different level of marketing and viability in the market.
No, like you said, like I think the ability to touch those athletes in that way, because streaming is definitely the new wave. I think alternative broadcasts are going to be big from that standpoint. Like you said, you get some of these young streamers and like all the leading up stuff that we talked about, but alternative broadcast where I can get this young guy and he can do an alternative broadcast, and start talking about the game, and be doing whatever during the game and watch.
But who has mastered that formula? The
So
NFL. The NFL
yeah.
has mastered the we're gonna sweep. We're gonna get everybody right. We're gonna get we're
hmm
gonna get every generation in
hmm
one fall swoop. And if you even think back to last night when Monday Night Football game, you got that Simpsons theme going, right? It's like they use the cartoons and they use Nickelodeon,
hmm
right? Everything's a Nickelodeon themed game or a Kids Choice
hmm
game to try to appeal to that on top of the flag football product. on top
Mm-hmm.
of the fact you're going to have flag football now in the Olympics, and you're going to be pushing all types of, I guarantee, the NFL loves to play to, like, even with the, I believe it was the NFL, the anniversary, they did a commercial where it was like they were at a big event, and Marshawn Lynch, I forgot, I think it was I forgot the anniversary, but they did like a commercial where like the kid, is running. And so I think that the NFL is really mastering how to, like, get every generation involved, but primarily, that younger generation.
Yeah, that's right. And then, like I said, the alternative broadcast is where you can do that, because you can literally have something for everybody. You can have something. You can have your old school guys. You can have your young millennials. You can have everybody can get touched when you do it that way. And I think it's a lot of opportunity in that. I think the next thing that I want to touch on is the AJ DeBansa, his recruitment, and he announced that he is going to BYU. He chose them over UNC, Kansas, and Alabama. Like, I think that's huge, because it tells there's a shift between, okay, the number one player can go to BYU, and they say it's reported as a record $7 million deal. That's insane. Like, what's your initial thoughts on it? What does this mean to NCAA college basketball recruitment?
Yeah, I think this is the one. This is the the recruiting battle that's really going to change things. Specifically in that, we didn't expect a number one player to be like, okay, I'm not going to go the traditional bluebird route. I'm gonna stay local. I'm gonna go to BYU. And if you think back to how he did it, right, is it also the presentation of it was actually really interesting as well. Goes on First Take. If you he had the beanie on that had Red Bull on top of it, what I thought was very smart as
Mm,
well. You throw that in there because he is a Red Bull athlete on the NIL side. So I think just his whole rollout, right? Because now recruiting announcements are marketing rollouts now.
yep, yep.
It's a whole rollout, whether you're going on not just First Take or you're going on a pivot or what have you. Everything's a rollout. You're gonna lean on sort of a media platform to tell that story, and how you do it is one thing. So I think he's shifting the game a little bit. We're not seeing that. And you
Hmm.
also have to think we take a step back from just him, but just BYU, right? They're now in a Big 12. And the Big
Hmm.
12, is historically has been from a basketball perspective, has always been, up there as far as a competitive conference and getting exposure. So this is a huge win, not just for BYU, but also the media networks are going to win as well. And it kind of makes sense now is why he went to ESPN to make the announcement, because you think Big 12 has partnerships with, ESPN as well as Fox. So that's interesting.
Yep. No, that definitely, all that behind the scenes is gonna tie in, and that's always gonna play the big role of how things go down, but you really don't know it until you start putting the pieces together. Like, it to me, it says that NIL is it's the new battleground for recruiting high school athletes. But the biggest thing is that, like, how those partnerships and how those corporate deals are done. Like, it's going to be very important to understand how those relationships are going to work. Like you just said, okay, they're in the Big 12 now. Big 12 have a relationship with ESPN. He goes on ESPN and announces it, and that's who he chooses as BYU. All of that stuff had to be orchestrated and made
For sure.
whole in the background.
Yeah,
The NIL
absolutely.
deal, all of that, like, and it just speaks to how big business is happening in um in college sports. And I think the biggest thing is that AJ is able to actually participate on the front end versus on the back end, when it was still going on. There were still things going on with the AAUs and how this person went to this school and what happened. Somebody got to check, but now AJ is the one that the athlete is the one that's getting the check. And I think that's very important. And I think that's big for the future of college sports. Like, that's just 7 M's on one deal. That's insane.
Yeah, and you also throw in the fact that now, college tournaments, they only have NIL basketball tournaments. That's another thing too, that basketball, I think we're gonna see, even though the viewership is low in the NBA right now, we're gonna talk about that another time. But I think college basketball is in an interesting spot now because of the NIL, and because these institutional, like these collectives are now having a voice, but it also opens the doors for, college basketball players to make that money early with these tournaments. You mean to tell me we're going to only have one NIL themed tournament on top of March Madness? We're going to always have March Madness, but
yeah,
you can see all of these like Maui Invitationals, all of these early, everything everything. You won't be able to have a tournament without it being NIL, some sort of a money or prize or brand
yes,
going to be
absolutely,
a part of it. So
absolutely.
it's over.
I wouldn't be surprised if the conference tournaments eventually become some type of
It's a
money
prize.
grab.
Yeah. To
They're
incentivize it,
gonna
right?
they're
You
gonna
got to
incentivize they're gonna incentivize the winner of the conference tournament for, hey, you get X amount of money and the sponsor is Coca-Cola, and yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
because
Every single thing is going to be incentivized with some type of dollar amount for the winner. It's coming.
yes, especially, I mean, and then, if you look at it, everything, in some instances kind of mirror itself, right? I think that, the college basketball game takes some things from the NBA and vice versa. So you think of like the NBA having a in-season tournament. You think that was like, that wasn't by accident, it was so that, you can encourage more in-season basketball. It's almost like you're incentivizing, and I think it's different in basketball because basketball is, football, you can't really see the athlete. Basketball, you're very visible. So, players aren't wearing helmets. So, that's more brand, that's more marketability. And so I think that you're going to see more, not even just in the men's game, but also in the women's game, as well, both sides, you're going to see more, more incentives and more brands being involved in the tournaments and exhibition matchups.
Yeah, and that leads us right to our last topic, which is the NBA Cup and the ratings being down right now. They're down by 10%. Group play ratings dropped. They were expecting it to try to, enhance people watching. I think they've said something about fan confusion over how the NBA Cup format and the significance of it for the season. I think it's a really good point because I looked at it. I was looking at it the other day and I was like, oh, well, there's 3 groups, but they're only taking 4 teams for the playoffs. And so it's like, okay, how do you decide the 4 teams? Because there was a bunch of teams that were 3-1. And so and then it's just very confusing. And I think they overcomplicated it when they could have just done a better job of making it something that was simple. I think their ideas in the right place. To me, there's no downside from a competition standpoint of you having an in-season tournament, being able to monetize it. From a marketing standpoint, the courts are a great idea, but I think that the execution of it is not being done properly. So I think they're on the right path. I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries. And at this point, it's not even just like players just sitting out, but some players they're like really getting injured. Like I know some people, it's the cool thing to say, all these players they're soft, they're sitting out, they're bad, like they're not wanting to play back. Like it's one thing to say, oh, they're soft and they're not playing. And it's another thing, this guy tore his ACL. This guy ruptured his Achilles. This guy tore his rope. Like there are real injuries going on. So that's my question to the people that want to say that. What do you say to that? Like if I have the guy, like, I think Paulo had to have surgery, right?
I believe, I believe so. I think
Paulo had to have surgery. Paulo had to have surgery. Franz Wagner ended up getting hurt. Chet fell and his hip. It was something that he had to put him out for a while. Like it's Kawhi. Like I think they're being critical about these players sitting, but what do you want them to do if they're actually getting injured?
But but Fred, that what you're talking about, that topic of like the over usage of that's an issue not just in the NBA but also in the NFL as well. So in the NBA you have superstars actually are hurt. As much as the older players from the old days that say like, well, we didn't we played back to backs and the back whatever. I still think like it's other factors that they may be missing that they may not necessarily wrap their head around because they're not playing in this particular generation, right? But then on the NFL, I mean, look at the Ravens. They're playing, I believe, 3 games in 10 days. Like the NFL has the same issue where you're having players. So you think about the fact that you got to play multiple games, in a select amount of days. You add on top of that, the fact that you're adding on more foreign, when you're traveling, right? You got all these international games that are going on now. So I think in particularly NFL, NBA, as far as the thinking about the athletes and find that balance between, okay, yes, we want to have more games because fans want to watch football on Thursday and we want to watch on Sunday and we want to stream. But then it's like, what about these players who have to travel? What about, in the NBA? It's like, because you think about with Kawhi, for example, not playing in the NBA. I mean, imagine, not saying, they would lose money, but I'm sure that's impacting, how many people that are tuning into those specific games or even just with Philly. Like, you got when Joel and Paul George was out, it's like, it's kind of hard to, when your superstars aren't, because the NBA is so superstar driven. It's like, if the superstars aren't playing, it's like, I'm not watching. Well, I'd rather go watch college basketball. I'd rather watch that a primetime game.
And that's where the difference is. And that's why I feel like I understand. I don't think that it's in trouble. I don't think the NBA is in trouble as people think they are. I think, to your point of the ratings being down, it's because I never know who's going to play, right? So on a regular season night, in a regular season game, I don't necessarily know who's going to play. So I'm not that, gung-ho to watch it, because NBA is more driven by the players and the teams. NFL, everybody wants to see their team play. It's the team versus if the Steelers are playing their rival, then
the Ravens. You gonna watch that. You want to watch that game.
Who's playing. If Lamar Jackson's out, you're still watching the game.
You watch it. Yeah.
The NBA doesn't have that. It's not built off that. It's built off the star players. And I think that even when you have those opportunities, like I think the NBA is going to be fine, because they still, the top players, they still have a large fan base. So when they're playing, and when the playoffs come, when everything comes, they still, like you said, they are carrying the weight, and that's why they get paid the way they do. And that's why they drive up the numbers and the revenue that they do. So as a whole, the NBA, their rating might be down, but the NBA, like if you go match up the NBA, if you go look at their followers and what they're able to do from a sponsorship standpoint, the NBA the players are still doing numbers.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think with it's not all like doom and gloom. I just feel as though how they're promoting the product, it's too much thinking involved. I don't know if I think it's like a book on like marketing, where like if you have to think about something, then I'm not buying it. You too much thinking involved, I'm not buying. Like when you're trying to buy something, like you want to make it, I want to be able to understand exactly what I'm watching. I don't want to have to be confused, because if I have to like think about it and be confused, I'm not going to want to consume it. So I think that's the issue, is just it's not consumer friendly. The in-season tournament and how I think it's being promoted, it's like it's too like a group stage, and like you said, the courts are nice. I mean, it's not all the way bad, but I just think that it's not easy to consume as other sports products are currently.
Yeah, I like it. And man, I think that's a good way to close it out. I think, from a big picture standpoint, like the formats and all of that, it creates an opportunity. I think that's very important. That they have opportunity, like everything, the NIL, NBA, all of this are things that I know that big brands are salivating over, because it's opportunities to be made to get the product in front of the people and the consumers that want to see it and want to consume the product. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to be made on that. And then, like I said, from the player standpoint, there's plenty of opportunity for them to make their money and be able to be in front of everybody and showcase their talents. Yep. So yeah, man. So as we close, like, what do you got for the people? Like, what's going on? What you want to talk to them about?
Yeah, man. A lot going on as far as from a content perspective. I have some more episodes dropping of the Jersey podcast. I have another episode in the works where I'm going to be, speaking to athletes and, kind of talking to them about, their NIL experience and just kind of getting their stories out there as well. So a lot of great things that I'm cooking up on at, Jersey Sports Network. I mean, also doing a lot of great work with DraftKings right now, working on, a lot of different shows. And and being in that content space, I'm learning a lot from that. So there's a lot of great things cooking right now.
Dope. I look forward to it, man. I think
Sure.
that's gonna be really big. At Dream Big Sports, we're working on getting this platform out for you all for the 2025. Then it's gonna be very big. I think you brought up a great point of like just how people consume things. So that I'm definitely taking that into how I'm building this platform out. I think it's gonna be huge. Being able to make sure that athletes are understanding how to leverage technology to make things easier on them, as well as just understand the business side. That's what we do here is talk about the business side of things and being able to look at things from a different perspective. And then finally, after you transition out of sports, like what are those skills that you need to have to be able to go into the business world and be able to be successful? Because you might as well be able to profit off of it for the rest of your life and be able to do things. So I think that's big. So as we sign off, man, I see y'all in a couple of weeks. We're definitely going to recap the 2024 and then talk about the predictions for 2025. So I'm ready to talk.